In this video, I'm going to mount a hydrofoil on an RC jet. How can I even call myself an RC YouTuber when I haven't flown an EDF jet in 15 years? So I figured it's about time to get a new one. This is the FMS Futura, and it has an 80mm fan inside. After building it up, I took it out to the field for the first flight. I was pretty nervous because EDF jets like this one are one of the more difficult types of RC planes to fly, and I typically only fly slow and forgiving airplanes.
Yeah, dude, see? Yeah.
Once in the air, it flew really well, but these things require complete and total focus. You really can't take your eyes off them for a second.
Yeah, man. She's slippery.
Yeah.
Go up high, try some slow flight or something.
Oh yeah, see if it stalls?
Oh, it definitely will, but see if it'll bite, like if it's gonna drop a wing or something.
They're like pancakes.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. There's a tip stall.
Yeah, it's fine. Gentle, gentle.
Okay.
Nice recovery, nice recovery. Yeah, dude. Excellent. First time in 12 years?
Maybe more. I don't even know. EDF jets are not my thing.
Well, you handled that great, so good job.
This thing came so close to crashing during that stall. I got really lucky there. So now we know it flies, but to be honest, I'll probably rarely ever fly this thing because all the parks near my house are too small. The only wide open, unpopulated area near my house is the lake. And unfortunately, they don't sell float kits for EDF jets. But then I remembered seeing a video of a Navy jet with water skis. It was called the F2Y Sea Dart, and it looked like the water skis worked really well. So maybe I can build something kind of like the water skis for my EDF jet, and then I'd be able to take off and land on the lake. How neat would that be? Step 1 was to get rid of the retractable landing gear. These components weigh quite a bit. Altogether, I was able to remove 240 grams, or 0.6 pounds, so I was hopeful that the flight characteristics would improve a bit, or at least be more forgiving when I attach big hydroplaning surfaces to the bottom. Next, it's time to start waterproofing the electronics. I took each servo out, opened it up, and sprayed Corrosion X everywhere. This stuff is like a sticky oil that covers all the electronics and prevents water from touching them. I wouldn't say it makes the servos waterproof, but definitely water resistant. Then I closed them up and reinstalled them in the plane. Next, I needed to fill the holes that the landing gear used to occupy, so I cut out some chunks of insulation foam to match the shapes and glued those into place. After that, I used the same type of foam to carve out these wingtip pontoons. These things will hopefully keep the wingtips from digging into the water while the aircraft is hydroplaning on the main ski. And they'll also hopefully help provide enough buoyancy to keep the wings out of the water so the flap and aileron servos aren't fully submerged all the time. One big problem I foresaw is the air intakes sucking up water. To hopefully reduce the chance of that happening, I opened up the areas above the inlets to improve airflow from the top, and glued in a foam sheet along the bottom to hopefully keep out splashes. Now it's time to start carving out the main water ski. This ski is going to end up being more of a pontoon than a ski. It needs to have quite a bit of buoyancy to help keep the wings up. If the majority of the buoyancy was coming from the wings and the fuselage, then those things would just drag through the water when I initially throttle up, and I would never be able to build up any speed. But despite being a pontoon, this ski is still a hydroplaning surface. I kept the bottom surface nice and flat, so it should be able to plane across the surface of the water just like a regular water ski would. To make everything smooth and slippery to the water, I'm using packing tape on all the planing surfaces. Steering this thing while it's on the water is going to be impossible since there will be very little air flowing over the rudder. So to solve this problem, I'm adding thrust vectoring. To do this, I drilled some holes in the exhaust tube and stuck a rod through. Then I glued a thin little carbon plate to the rod. That'll act as the thrust vectoring vane. Fun fact, the carbon plate came from the handle cut out on my carbon fiber catamaran deck. This is why you should never throw anything away. I 3D printed a little control horn and glued that onto the rod, and that just connects to the rudder control horn via a second push rod. And that completes our amphibious EDF jet conversion. I was pretty excited to get this thing out on the water and see if the foam planing surfaces will end up working at all. Part of me thought they would, but another part of me thought there was no way the balance is going to end up being correct. There's only one way to find out. Oh, it floats, that's good. I think it'll work. That's pretty cool. It definitely got up and went. Oh, it's really tail heavy. Wow, I'm really glad it didn't hit that dock. Just cleared it. Oh, that's a lot of bugs. You can find a lot of cool things out here on the lake, but apparently an emotional support duck is not one of them.
But luckily it's 2025 and we no longer need to talk to ducks for therapy. These days, fitting therapy into your busy schedule is easier than ever, thanks to BetterHelp, who is the sponsor of this video. With over 7,000 reviews on Trustpilot and a 4.3-star rating, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Check out the reviews for yourself to see what real people are saying about BetterHelp. The big thing that's been stressing me out lately is time. The problem with it is the older you get, the faster it goes by. It's pretty scary and it makes you realize that life is short. Talking to a licensed therapist is a great way to navigate things like this. They can help you talk through your feelings and make sense of it all. BetterHelp's therapists listen to you, ask questions, and help you see things from new perspectives. They can also give you advice and techniques to make positive changes in your life. BetterHelp's goal is to make accessing therapy as easy as possible. If you think you could benefit from talking to a licensed therapist, click on the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/rctestflight. Using my link will help get you 10% off of your first month there. Using therapy is a sign of strength, not weakness. So try it out for yourself with BetterHelp. Now back to the project.
The water ski works great. It drives pretty good. I'm surprised there's not water in there. All right, I got the Insta360 Go on the front for a little extra nose weight. Hopefully this works out. Wow, this thing feels sketchy. It really struggled to get off the water now that it's more nose heavy. Holy crap. Wow, it flies really well. Wow.
I thought it was a bird.
Wow, this thing is sleek, man. It flies really well. Oh, and stalled. Man, it crashed way out there. Let's see if I can bring it back. I think I have control though, it's moving. I'm really glad I have signal. This Futaba is doing pretty well. Man, I sure hope that Insta360 Go is still on there because it went in nose first. Come on, yes, yes! Ooh, whoa. The Insta360 is just dangling. Oh man, and it almost fell out. Holy crap, I'm so lucky. That was real sketch, too close for comfort. Yeah, I gotta do some work on this thing. It flew though, it flew really well. It's just very prone to stalling. You gotta keep the airspeed quite high. Oh, that was dumb. I couldn't really move the batteries any further forward, so to try and make it less nose heavy, I cut down the intake strikes a bit, since those were probably contributing to some lift in the front. Then it was back to the lake. Not much has changed with the airplane itself, but I really wanted to get a shot of it in ground effect and see if it feels the ground effect at all. I feel like it won't because normally faster planes feel the ground effect less, but we'll find out. I'm just gonna stay in ground effect right now. Yeah, I cannot feel it at all. Sick. I'm gonna try and get it into ground effect now. It's going too fast, man. I'm not gonna be able to touch and go. It didn't feel the ground effect at all there, at least I don't think it did. This is not a ground effect vehicle. This is a jet. It goes really fast, and really fast jets do not feel ground effect, at least not at remote control jet scale. Whoa! Oh my God, that was an amazing landing. Whoa. I did it. I had my one good landing. That's all I get. So this thing is driving in circles. That's not great. Oh, I think I might have broken one of my flaps. Oh, I think that's just tape on the bottom of the elevator, or the horizontal stabilizer that came off. So the next day I decided to mess around with flaps. I previously had not been taking off with flaps because they seemed to be dragging in the water and making it harder to get up on plane. But on this day they actually seemed to help it take off at a much lower speed. Though I would have to be sure to raise the flaps right after takeoff because they definitely make this stall-prone aircraft even more sensitive to a stall. Oh, I'm so lucky it's upright. So at this point the plane was definitely a functional amphibious jet, but I didn't want to just stop there. I wanted to try something a little more wild. I've tried mixing hydrofoils and airplanes a few times in the past, and I've always come to the conclusion that they're not a great combo. Hydrofoils and airplane wings usually don't share a common operating speed range for a given size of aircraft. And even if their operating speed ranges do line up, the transition of the hydrofoil going in and out of the water causes a huge change in the total drag of the aircraft, so it's really difficult to go through that transition smoothly. One thing that does seem a bit more practical to me is to have the hydrofoil operate as a fully submerged hydrofoil at super slow speeds, and then as you build up speed, allow it to operate as a hydroplaning surface, just skimming across the surface of the water. This one here did not seem to operate as a planing surface for very long. It had a tendency to stay underwater and just ventilate, rather than skimming the surface like a water ski. I think this was because of the shape of the foil. It had a lot of camber on the lower surface, and a super sharp leading edge. For this project, I'm going to try adding a hydrofoil / planing surface made entirely of printed circuit boards. I think this will plane across the surface better than a normal hydrofoil shape because of its flat bottom. I'm going to do a whole video on PCB hydrofoils later, but for now I'm just repurposing this one for this project. So one big unknown here is where to place the foil relative to the CG. My best guess is that it should be slightly in front of the CG. Reason being is that the foil generates two forces. You get lift and you get drag. When you add those together, you get a vector that looks about like this, and you want that aimed directly at the center of gravity. That way it'll disturb the pitch axis of the aircraft as little as possible as it enters and exits the water. Another question is what angle of attack the foil should be at. I ended up setting it at about the same angle as the water ski, probably around 3 or 4 degrees from the aircraft's center line. I was a little concerned that having the foil ahead of the CG would make the yaw axis less stable, so I added this ancient rate gyro to the rudder channel. This thing is a real RC Powers throwback.
It's kind of a windy day, not the best for flying, but I'm gonna do a quick test of this hydroplaning surface / hydrofoil, whatever it ends up being. Should be interesting. Let's see if this thing will get up on foil. Whoa, it totally does. Holy shit. That worked incredibly well. Holy crap. Wow. It's like a water ski. Damn. That was awesome. I cannot believe how well that worked. Let's go for a landing. Look at that. Oh. Man, that was porpoising hard though. That was insane. Woo, look at that, it pops right up. That's so cool. I don't even think I'll need flaps this time. The hydrofoil pops it up so easily. One thing that would totally kill this though is if it were to hit seaweed. That would be really bad. Woo! Haha. Sick. Maybe I'll take off towards us. Woo! Whoa. Oh. Whoa. Alright, second time with the hydrofoil. I've got a new camera angle this time. Hopefully that thing doesn't fall out. Wow, it almost stalled there on takeoff, as usual. It really dropped that wing down low. Okay, coming into land, right towards us. Whoa, that was such a good landing, but then it just launched. Okay, it's a little skippy, that's for sure. Woohoo! Oh, terrible landing. It's really far away. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, I definitely crashed. Okay, I guess it's time for the rescue paddleboard. Full steam ahead. Man, I really hope that Insta360 is still there. Yes, it's still there. Oh, I'm so lucky. Wow. This thing does not look like it's even all that damaged. Oh, there's the battery. Lost my wingtip. Ooh, there's a nice LED light in there. I could probably glue this wingtip back on. Where the hell did the canopy go? Oh, it's way over there. Whoa, that thing is like doing like a broad reach. It's sailing like 90 degrees to the wind. And got it.
So the fact that this just worked on the first try was pretty surprising, but I was a little bummed that it seemed to want to skip across the surface of the water rather than smoothly planing across the surface. Kinda skipping like a stone. This is probably hard to avoid at high speeds, but it would probably skip a bit less if I lowered the angle of attack of the foil. So these were some fun experiments, and now I don't have to drive all the way across town to the flying field every time I want to fly my jet. In the future, I'd like to revisit the hydroplaning landing gear concept, but this jet is just so volatile. It kind of makes experimenting a bit more difficult, so it'd probably be best to just use a plane with lower wing loading. So that's it for this project. Here's some bonus footage from the park on the first day I flew this jet. It's not dynamite, we promise. This plane has a built-in water bottle holder, look at that.
There you go. Oh, hang on, hold up.
Okay, we're good.
All right.
It's still on fire.
That's full.
Dude. Oh my god. Oh no. So if I understand correctly, that little drone is pulling that glider.
Come on, guys. We go. Oh no, jeez. Keep it easy.
Woo!
I basically got big old slotted flaps. You know, the air comes in from the bottom and then goes over the top, so it energizes the flow.
Look at that split flap. Damn. Wow, it's so slow.
Ready? Go. Whoa, what?
There you go.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. The plane, bro. What are you doing?
Oh! Yeah! Congratulations, you've made it to the end of the video. Now I want to show you a different project that I've been working on for a really long time. It doesn't fly or float or drive, but it's still pretty cool. And it's what's in all of these cardboard boxes over here. All you longtime viewers out there will know that I have a history of messing with LED lights. I've made lots of super bright LED light arrays and mounted them on cars and drones and submarines and all sorts of stuff. A few years ago, I put some colored emitters in Stratus LED's drone light modules, and when I aimed them all at a flat white surface, I was immediately captivated by the psychedelic shadows. And I was surprised that I haven't seen this effect used more often in music videos and photography, or even just in home lighting. Unless you skipped high school physics class, you know that combining red, green, and blue makes white light. That's exactly what's happening here. Where all three colors meet, you get white. And whenever one or more color gets blocked, you get crazy looking shadows that could be any color of the spectrum. It's a super fun effect to play with, and I thought there had to already be a lamp like this on the market. But to my surprise, there wasn't. So I decided to make one. Can't be that hard, right? If you're an electrical engineer, it wouldn't be. But I'm not. This product ended up taking over 3 years to bring to market. I first tried hiring an engineer from a freelancing website, and from that I ended up with some hot trash. It worked, but there were a lot of problems, and the electrical design was really sketchy. Then I called out for help at the end of one of my videos and found Steve. He's a really talented electrical product designer and cranked out a great PCB design. And I got to work designing all the hardware. One of the parts that took me an embarrassing number of revisions was the heatsink. It started out way too small and the LEDs would overheat way too fast. I prototyped all these parts through PCBWay, so shout out to them. The heatsink grew and grew, and eventually it ended up being giant. The production versions are made out of cast aluminum. They're super nice. The main PCB is covered with an injection molded shell, and that also turned out to look really nice. There's a gooseneck on there so you can aim the lamp, and a clamp so you can easily attach it to whatever. And there you have it, the final product. It has an ESP32 inside so you can control it wirelessly on any device that can run a web browser. And we made the software open source. Shout out to Paul for all the software help.
The arms can pivot 360 degrees so you can adjust the offset of the LEDs, and thus the size of your color shadows. This thing is really fun to play around with. It makes for a great photography accessory, great accent lighting in your home, great for physics demonstrations in school, and great for parties, though we do still need to add a party mode in the software. That's on the to-do list. If you want to buy one, you can, because I got lots of them. My initial hope with developing and selling a product was that I would be able to sponsor my own videos. But it turns out that if I sell the entire first batch, I'll just barely have broken even on the tooling and development costs. So that's a bit of a pipe dream. Maybe we'll get there someday. Anyways, that's all for this video. So thanks for watching. Bye.